Hey, welcome to the Board Game Network. This is James and Bronson, and we are going to talk about the 5 Mensa Select winners for 2016. We've got all 5 of them here. We're going to just touch on each one of them, give our thoughts and ideas about them and how they compare and contrast, and give you feedback as far as just different criteria might help you choose if you're going to go out and pick up one. So what do you think, Bronson, about this year's Mensa Select winners overall?
Well, the thing I like the most about the Mensa Award is that they choose original and creative games. So none of these are alike. There's not really any major similarity between all of them. But they're all an exciting new game to pick up. With the exception of Last Spike, I'm pretty sure all of them are different from any of the games that I've played before. So.
Okay, so let's just grab one. New York 1901. You're building skyscrapers in New York City, and you build them, you tear them down, you move out around the city. Here's something that they just did a phenomenal job with the artwork in this game. You look at the box lid. They've got partial gloss on part of the box. The board itself, this is the back of the board. There's the front, the back. They put artwork on it. Here's the inside of the box. They even embossed and put rivets and stuff inside the box. So they went above and beyond artwork wise on this game. So it plays 2 to 4 players. What do you think about this game here, Bronson?
Well, we've played quite a few games, all 2 through 4 players, and it's a quick game. I think the first couple games we went a little bit over the 60-minute mark, but it's something that you can bring a new player into. They can hop right in. The goal of the game is easily explained, and the goal is different each time. You randomize,
right.
You pull out a random tile, and that's 3 different random tiles, and that's what your goal is. So you can't just build in the same section and have the same strategy every game and expect to win.
There's no perfect setup. There's no best place on the map because different streets give you bonuses.
Yep. And my personal favorite part to any game is the fact that it's a dynamic player. There's only so much space, and if that other player is going into your area as well, you have to completely change the way you're playing mid-game, possibly, depending on what other players are doing. So it's a huge bonus for me.
So this game does that well, doesn't it?
Yep. And it's also one that younger players can understand. Now, the strategy might not be there, and you might have to help coach some of the younger players through, but it's definitely a game that the entire family could play through quite easily.
It does say 8 years and up is what it says on here.
Yep.
Okay, let's grab Favor of the Pharaoh. Favor of the Pharaoh, it has, I would say these 2 here. This one is the only abstract one. All these are themed, these 4. This one here, to me, also has the most abstract quality, even though it's got a theme. You're rolling dice, you're trying to complete goals, 4 of a kind, 5 of a kind, stuff like that. And it has randomization based on your setup. You can have an A or a B side, and then there's different tiles out here that you can roll the dice. And so you don't have the same setup each time, so you don't know the perfect way to play, except for what?
Yeah, going just for the straight number of dice. That the end goal in the game is just to have a lot of dice, because you can't progress through the game without having a lot of dice. So my only problem with the game is that there are some tiles that are way better than other tiles. Like, there's not a real balance between the powers on the different tiles. That being said, it's an amazingly fun game. It's an interesting one that's not like a lot of others. And it's a pretty light game that you can just sit down and play and not have a whole lot of depth of thinking or strategy thinking
Right,
to
there's
it.
not a lot of deep thinking. And that's one of the things I've noticed about all Mensa Select Award winners is that none of them are spend 4 hours in front of the rule book learning and the rules and the strategy. All of these are fairly simple games. The rule books are fairly short as far as game, board games goes, and it doesn't take a lot to get into any of them. And none of them are over 2 hours, hour and a half, and most of them are shorter than that. So it's my understanding that the Mensa committee, the Mensa people, get together for some big gaming convention and then play for 4 days straight, and at the end they vote for their favorite games, and these are the 5 favorites that they had. So they're not hardcore board gamers, but that doesn't make it not a legitimate award. I mean, Board Game Geek has a forum post out there where people are debating whether the Mensa Select Awards are legitimate awards.
Hey, here's the thing with board games. Are you having fun playing the game? It doesn't matter if it's cardboard cutouts on a table with dice that you're rolling and it looks ugly like a 3-year-old made it. If you are having fun playing the game, then that's all that matters. And that's what they judge it on. They play all of these games, and whichever ones they have the most fun with that meet their criteria, that's what gets the award. That makes it a legitimate award in my eyes.
Okay, let's grab Last Spike. Last Spike is a railroad themed game. You're building railroad tracks, but it's not really like Ticket to Ride or 1830 or any of the Rail Baron, any of the railroad games I've played in the past, because they're not really historically accurate rails going across the country. It's just a diamond. So the railroad theme seems to be pasted on there, but it's okay. And you're connecting 2 cities to each other. And the closest I would put this to any other game is Acquire. If you read the rules to Acquire and you read the rules to this game, there are a lot of overlap and similarities to them. But this game moves much faster than Acquire. Acquire is a 2-hour game. This one plays in 45 minutes or something. And so there are no mergers of the hotels. The way you get money back in this game is just to connect 2 cities. And so there's 4 railroad tracks in between 2 cities, and whoever plays that last one down that connects the 2 cities, then there's payoffs based on how many stock shares or how many cards you have of property on those 2 cities. And so it really doesn't slow down because you don't stop and think and consider, and it moves very fast. So if you like Acquire, if you've played Acquire, but it's too long of a game for your family or whoever you're playing with, this would be a good follow-up to that one. Very similar. So we'll jump in there. And
I would say it's a good entry for that type of game. I really love Acquire. I know it's on my top 5, and I try every time we get together to try and get a group together to play Acquire. However, that being said, Acquire is a very crunchy game. It's a very thought-intensive. You have to plan a whole bunch. With Last Spike, it's a lot easier for newer players and for younger players to get into that type of game. My only issue with it so far is that we've had a couple of playthroughs where someone got a hand of all high-cost tiles and someone got a hand with all low-cost tiles. So there is that chance that you can just be hurt based on what you got in your opening hand or what you draw throughout the game. I'd suggested a house rule where if you draw an opening hand that's all high costs and you don't have a couple low costs, then everyone would shuffle back in and redraw or something to fix that problem. But really, aside from that, it's a very easy to play, easy to understand, and maybe once you get people to love this game and play through it, then you can step up to a
Or
more
a game
complex.
like Fuse, where when you deal out the cards, you have to have at least, you can't have 2 high numbered Fuse cards, right?
Yep.
So if you get dealt your opening railroad tiles, maybe if you have all high cost ones, maybe you could trade 2 in, or
Yeah.
or something to get and keep drawing until you have. I mean, the price doubles if they're not next to a city. So you might have a high cost one and then have a doubled one, So in theory, you're playing the ones next to the cities to start with, but you better get ones next to the cities.
And there's some interesting strategy dynamics with this game based upon what tiles you keep in your hand and don't play. There's been several playthroughs where I had a tile that would have ended the game earlier or helped 2 or 3 other people, and I kept that one hidden for the entire game, and that completely changed the dynamic of where everyone else built. So there's a lot of interaction between players, and there's a lot more complexity behind it if you want to get into it.
A lot of strategy as far as what to play, what not to play, what to hold on to. Well, I've got one that'll make these 2 cities money, but I don't have any land in either one of those cities. So I better pick me up some land, or I just sit there and hold on to a tile that I don't play. But eventually your hand fills up with tiles you're not going to play, and so you're forced into playing them eventually, right? So what about World's Fair 1893? World's Fair 1893 is based on a fair, and you putting forth your electricity, or what your booth on what you want to show at the fair. What do you think of this one?
When we first pulled it out, it looked like a pretty complex game. There's lots of pieces. But we had some relatively new players, people that don't play board games on a regular basis. And we were all, I'm pretty sure we were all laughing by halfway through the game. It looks like a simple, straightforward game, but once you hit the 4-player mark, it gets pretty complex, or pretty chaotic with everything that's going on.
Trying to... there's a dynamic there and I like this about games, where you would like to do this, but that stops you from doing this, like worker placement. I really want to do this, but I need to do this too. And this one has that. World's Fair has that, where you put your piece over here on electricity, but all the electricity cards are on the other side. You're like, I'm not...
And
I
you
need
can't
both,
activate and
but
get
you
your
can't do
victory
both.
points. You have to get your victory points. You have to have the most people on a certain square. But if someone else has the most people on that, well, you're going to need to go somewhere else. And then after every round, you have the number of people on there, so you can't. It's a lot harder to just hold on to one square if everyone's going for there.
Yeah, because you get halved.
Yeah,
half your people.
There's a lot of, again, like with New York and many of the other games, there's a lot of dynamic gameplay in between. You have to change up what you're doing. Halfway through the last game we played of this, I had to completely change what I was doing in my entire strategy because another player was just sitting on one square. And the other thing I love about the game is that it encourages you to go broad. You get more victory points for having lots of different things instead of focusing on one thing.
Don't put all your workers on one thing and keep getting that and keep getting that, because you don't get as many points that way.
So the timing of when you do things, where you're going, and like what you have to cut out and don't waste resources on really makes this a dynamic game and really enjoyable. Again, it's another game, great artwork, some historical relevance on a lot of the cards, brings in some historical figures, and just good component quality all around. Just a solid game in general. I do wish it played more players.
Plays 2 to 4 in about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
10 years and up, so it reaches that younger audience, but there is that strategy involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of strategy involved in this. They could play it, but I don't know that the 10-year-old, the average 10-year-old would get all of it.
Well, you know what? I'm 52, and I'm not sure I get all. Or 50, I'm not sure I get it all. You play it, and you go, you know what? I put all my stuff over here, but all the cards were over there, and you know, like But that's what makes some games fun, is that you're torn between, do I do this or do I do that? Because I can't do both. You know, and then somebody in front of you does what you wanted to do, and the cards are gone and they're all different.
Yep.
Okay, circular reasoning. Circular reasoning is the only abstract game of the bunch, so this would fit right in there with people like chess or checkers or abstract games, not themed. There's no theme to it. Your goal is just to get to the center of the board. You just got pieces. You've got a circle and a triangle and a square, and you're trying to get to the center of the board. So whoever gets there with all of their pieces first is the winner. Plays 2 to 4, and I definitely would say that 4 players is much more chaotic than 2. 2 allows you, there's doorways that let you get between levels. There's 3 levels, and when there's 2 players, it's much easier to determine where that doorway is going to be when it's your turn.
Yeah, because you only have 2 people, and every other turn is your turn. It's a lot easier to make plans. With 4 players, you have 3 other people completely changing the way the board works and acts. And unless everyone is going with the straight, most logical choice, which never happens, it's not going to end. We've yet to anticipate who is going to win the game, even halfway through the game, because someone invariably blocks a doorway or prevents someone from doing it, or just decides to be contrary and, you know, devotes their purpose to preventing someone from getting through the doorway.
Well, I can see that you're getting ready to win, Bronson, so I'm going to sit in front of the door, and you're not going to come through because you can block the doors.
The only thing that we've had, the only problem we've had with the game is some people look at the game and see, oh, well, there's only 16 pieces plus the board. This has to be too simplistic of a game, and just dismiss it out of hand. Anyone that we've actually gotten to sit down and play the game absolutely enjoys it. It's a quick, fun game that it doesn't take a lot of time to set up or to explain the rules, and pretty much anyone can pick it up.
Right. 20 to 45 minutes is what it's saying on there, and it plays in half hour. It does. So moving your pieces around, and then the doorways move based on how many pieces are on each level. So if somebody moves onto that level, it speeds the doorway up. Somebody moves off, it slows the doorway down. And so it's very dynamic in its movement of where you're trying to predict where the doorway is, so that you can get your piece so that you can move through the doorway on your turn. Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting game, definitely one that you could bring out and play with anyone. I wouldn't say it's one that people would love to sit down and play for hours at a time, depending on the group of players, but it's definitely one you can bring out all the time.
I would say that's probably the case with most short games.
Yeah.
10, 20, 30-minute games, you play them once, you'll play them twice, something like that, and then you might get a different game out.
The only other issue for value-conscious people is people might have a problem for however much you end up buying the game for, viewing that number of pieces.
Well, I would say this is the cheapest one out there, I think. I think it retails for $25. So I think all the other ones are probably more than that. So, any standouts among the 5? This is the best one?
They're so different. I really can't pick. I would say if you're playing with people who don't normally play board games, and you're looking for something that's just a quick, like once a week family game or something like that, circular reasoning has to be it. It's something that you can just pick out for a quick game. It'll fit in anywhere, and it's one that you could take and play pretty much any time you wanted to.
It's probably the shortest rules of the bunch too, right? Last Spike I think is pretty short, but I'm pretty sure circular reasoning is the shortest from the 5.
And again, I'm biased against dice games. I don't like Favor the Pharaoh as much, but every game we've played of it, I've had a blast playing. So, and Bezier Games is one of my all-time favorites. Castles of King Ludwig. Everything they make has good production quality and a great game. Newark 1901 is probably my favorite family game out of the bunch, though. If you're looking for just a like one game a week or just sitting down for a longer session, 1901 has the theme. It appeals to kids. You're building stuff, so there's that physical component to it. And every game we've played is different.
I tend to like longer games myself. That's my personal preference. A couple-hour game, hour and a half to hour and a half plus,
Yeah.
is my personal favorite. But I play short ones. I play them once or twice, and like, okay, I want.
I do wish there were more maps for 1901 or more different pieces. It does have replayability, but it doesn't have that, or possibly even different goals or.
Oh, another deck of.
Yeah. More
Stuff.
different stuff. Like it's one of those games that I'm sitting there. I love playing this game. I wish it had an expansion.
You're picking one goal from 3 instead of 1 from 15.
Yeah, that's my only dig on it right now. Is I wish it's one of the few games I've played out of here. Like out of all of these, if I wish one game had more development and another expansion to come, that would be 1901.
So, would you suggest all of these are good games for?
Absolutely. Every single one of these, I've had a blast playing. We've had players play all of these who don't normally play board games, and they all had a blast. So
they have broad appeal. All of them have broad appeal. The Mensa group didn't pick any dud out of the
Not this year.
Not this year. Okay, wow. There's our review. Tune into all of our videos here at the Board Game Network to keep up to date on any new rules that are coming out for games, any new games, unboxings, and of course our reviews. Thanks for watching.